Hello to everyone, this is Vishal and hope all are doing good. And this is the video related to the data binding adapters and inverse data binding adapter because of some users want to see the difference between these two. And if you go with my previous tutorials in many data binding and WVM approaches, I have worked with these binding adapters, how we can use the images on the binding adapters with the view. A lot of stuffs we already work on that, but I'm giving this session just for them who want to know about binding adapters in a more depth and inverse binding adapter where we use it. So see the difference between these two today, and hope all are doing good and working well, and my good wishes to all and my new users also. So let us start this topic with the data binding. So as we discussed in the many videos of MEVM data binding approach, how it make it easy, the coding in Androids, many things becomes easy when we go with that. That means you cut down your code, okay? And I will explain it one more time. That's in a brief. The binding approach always be worked in the two ways. The first one is your one-way binding and the second is your two-way binding. So whenever you work with the one-way binding, what happened with that, you can see this on the diagram. So we get from model, view model, or anywhere you have object be there, your data be there, you have to set your views according to that. So this is your one-way binding, as we have done on some cases like where we set the images with Picasso, and where we want to set our text views, where we want to show some we can say with the edit text, a lot of stuffs we have worked with before, spinners. But here two-way binding approach means whenever we work with that, where we get the things from the models, view models, that means our data, our object, and we set to the view, and I want some calculations, I want to do something with our view, and I want to take something from the get view, from the edit text or other ways. So at that time I need that data to do some operations or some functions with our data. So that is the two-way binding. That means we get the data, set the view, and we can get the values from the view and set our data. So that's the way our two-way binding approach we worked. So that's the scenario, and here on this case we go for the inverse data binding. That means it's nothing else. If we go with the adapter, with the binding adapter, that means simple language is that this is your custom setters and getters, okay, where you want to set and where you want to get. So make these things, we need custom setters, getters, and here we have a binding adapters or inverse binding adapter approaches we worked, okay. And if you go with the binding adapter, we can say that it is applied to the methods that are used to manipulate how values with expressions are set to the views. That means you can represent your custom views, you can show that something, and you want to manage the things of the view using these binding adapters easily. As I think many times I give this examples. If you watch my previous sessions, you go for that, and many times I've worked with this image URL with the Picasso, and that's worked. So I'm not going with that again because of it's in many videos. Today I explain the basic things to you again, how it works with your edit text and text view and others, and we can go with the custom classes also, but if have a time then today, otherwise we go for the next session. So now I explain with the basic examples the difference between the binding adapter and inverse binding adapter. So let's see first how we can do that with Android Studios, these things, and you can learn that the binding adapters, how it work, okay. So let us start it in Android Studio. Okay, so in Android Studio, the first and basic thing is you have to work with the data binding. You have to enable that true. Data binding is equals to, this enable is equals to true, the first step, and then we go with our activity main, and then you have to work with your layout, and you have to make the main layout be here. put it as in a main. And if we go with these kind of namespaces, you just put it as in a main. Okay, very easy. So now we have to work with some text views. So we'll make it this text view for you. So here, this is your text view, match parent, wrap contents, and just okay. And at this time, first we go with our main activity binding. So here you can give activity main binding, activity main binding. Sometimes it happen that it not created the class, so you just rebuild the project and you can see your main activity binding class be there. It names always be related to your activity. Just if you go with the second activity, so it go for the second activity, activity second binding. So this kind of classes it generated. Okay, so you can go with this kind of names. So data binding utils dot set content view, and here you can go with this. And if you watch my previous sessions, many times we have done this kind of stuff whenever we work with the data binding. Okay, so hide this set content view, no use of this. So this is our control on over data bindings. Okay, so this is the basic things we have to learn. And here on activity when we have to call this adapter. So for adapter I want to create some models for that, how we can set our data on the view. So this is one way approach, and then we go with the two-way approach. That means one-way binding and two-way binding. So you can learn the basic things here. So this is your binding view model, and you can extend that view model behave. So now we can design our view models in many approaches. So if you go with my sessions or a playlist, you can watch that's how we can work with the view models, live data. I have done already all those stuffs. So this is your private context. If you want to go with the context, that means if you want to call something from your activity, so you can use this context be here, or you can generate our toast or other things. Okay, so this is a simple binding view models. Now first I want to give the set binding adapter, how we can, that means make our custom setters, so we can work on that. So this is our binding adapter whenever you work with a binding adapter. And this is Android, and if you want to go with this greetings or whatever be the name, you can give this greetings, hello. I just give the name to that according to your views you can work on. Then you can go with this public static, and this is your void, and this is your set name. Okay, and where you want to design, that means for a complete view, for the text view, for the edit text view, it depends. Okay, so and at this time I'm just work with the text view, and on the next adapter I will work with edit text view, so I can explain to you inverse binding adapter. So I'm using this text view or whatever we, according to your choice you have to work. Okay, so this is your string, and at this time I'm go with this text view dot set text, and at this approach, and I want be a welcome and plus your string. So whenever you call this greet here, it automatically set our strings. So this is a easy way you can design your text views, your edit text views according to you. Okay, and here you can call that greetings. Yeah, you can see that. So here this is at, and you can say here a string, and this our name users. So I'm calling this users be here. So this is a very simple approach. You can work with this Android greetings with the string, yeah, users or whatever be your name. Okay, so let's run that and see what happened with this binding adapter. So first and basic thing is how we can set our binding adapter to our view. So that is a one-way approach. That means our data is something, and that data I want to show on the view. If you watch my recycler view, MVVM approaches, and other data binding, so in which I have used that images with the binding adapter inside the recycler view using the binding adapter. So that's with the control. You can work with the binding adapters. That makes very easy to load the Picasso with this. Okay. So this kind of stuffs be easy. So you can see that this is your welcome users. Okay, so a basic thing, but you can design this text view according to you. Just like if you want to do some operations with that text view, that means more uh, you want, so you can say that text view dot set all caps true. You want to set all caps true be here, and then you can say text view dot if you want to set text color, so you can go with the text color. So here the approaches be to set the color dot your parse color, and if you have any parse color with the string name with the hash, just like if we have d4 d667 like that, we can use as your fff white color. According to that you can work, and I want to set our text view dot set text size. Whatever you are doing with the layout you can do with that. Okay, and you can say that it is 22. So that's a simple greetings work with the. Okay, so that means you can make these things, this text view, whenever you use this text view it anywhere in your apps, it call it with the greetings and you can work with that. So that means here I just simply make a method, so you can use these approaches on your. So you can see this is the welcome users. Okay, so I want this text be a little right side, and so I want some paddings on that. So what to do, you can again create your binding adapter and work on that. That means you can see if you have a binding adapter like binding adapter, and this is your Android, and you make it as a padding left kind of things, and here you can say the public static and void set padding left. You give the name to this, and here I'm not using the special text view because of I want paddings of some more things or some more uh, widgets, so we can use simple paddings be here for the view. So you can say that padding for the view. Okay, and here you can see int padding because of padding we work on integer value. So view dot set padding, and here you can set whatever be your padding you want to give to your view. This is your view dot get padding top, view dot get padding right, and view dot get padding bottom. So this is our padding be ready, and if you want to work with this paddings be here, so you can call that padding be on your for this text view. So what to do, you can say that this is a padding left, and you just simply say that at, and here I want a 50 padding on that side, so it works with the 50. Okay, and also I just want to change this color because of little bit light it is, so ff 00 0f like this. So run this code. If you see that, that becomes very easy, and this is a simple binding adapter working. After this, we have to start the work on the inverse binding adapter. So you just practice on the binding adapters, but whenever we need a binding adapter, sorry, inverse binding adapter, how we can work with that? So like this we have to go. You can see that this is the padding left up to 50, and this is your red color. Okay, so this is a very simple example. You can work with your binding adapters or make your custom views. Now let's start the topic of inverse binding adapter. So I think this to be happen. So the parameter types are important. The first parameter is the type of the view that associated with the attribute. Whenever you work with the binding adapter, the first parameter always be the view related, just like your text view, edit text view, your view, what you want. On the second parameters, that means binding expressions for the given, what you want to do with that. Just like if I go with the int padding, well, I want to go with that, I want to set some string. So that's the things we have to work with binding adapter. Okay, now how we can call this inverse binding adapters? Let's start it. And what's the use of the getter? Custom getters be here. Okay, so let's see how the inverse binding adapter will work whenever we want we input some things, and we want some calculations during the time of view and want to set it for the getter side, means to some formulas you want to on that case. Like I'm giving the example, like uh, if I want to make a binding adapter for the edit view, how we can do that is your Android, this is your text. Okay, and here we can say that this is a public static void, and if you want to bind integer text, well, you can say that. And here this is our edit text, and here this is your int value, whatever be your value be. And if you want to set that value, so you can say this is your set text, and on the set text you can go with string dot value of, and this is your value. And here I'm using a value be like this integer value, and one static field that is called val for the calculations. So here I'm doing some calculations, that means I want two-way binding approach, that means I want to get something and work on with inverse binding adapter. So for this, if we have your inverse binding adapter, how we can use, you can use the attribute, and that attribute be like a Android. Okay, and this is your text, and here the same you can apply your formula, that is public static int, and this is your get integer from binding. Okay, and this is your edit text and edit text. So no need to set the values, you just get the values from the edit text be here. So if you have some values you can take this value, and you can say that this is your edit text dot get text, and whatever be your value from the edit text, that's you can take it as a string form, and you can work with like a try, and that val, and that val you have to calculate the things as an integer, float, double, whatever be your formula. I'm using a simple formula be like parse int, this is your value, and I want to add something like a 20. So whenever I want some input from the view side, I need this 20 to add on dynamic values. Or you can check that with your any formula. If you want to convert something during the input time, you can make on inverse binding adapter, and you use that, and you can do for the binding view model. So it depends on according to your situation, whatever be your app. So that's on. You can work with the spinners, you can work with your recyclers input, that means some edit inputs if you want inside on that. It's all. And here this is the log.t, so we can check it what be the value giving us value text, and here you can say this is your val, and here you have to return that val. On your catch case, you use the number format exception because of maybe some issues, so it not crash on that case, and here you can return your final val. So this is a very simple inverse binding adapter formula. Okay, and on your main activity you have to call that binding be here private binding view model, binding view model, that's it. And your binding view model be like new binding view model, this. Okay, and okay, and here you have to work with your edit text, and here I'm using match parent wrap contents, and I want to be like some input, so okay, so use that text. And how you can use the text, that is most important, because of whenever you work with this you take it as equal, because of we need some input. But how you can take it, here we have a variable, that variable be your binding val, and we can use that binding view model as under the data. And here I have a binding val that be as an integer value, so we can take it as integer be here. Okay, and so run this and see what be the result whenever you take this input. So generally what happened, that means if we need some calculations, some formulas, some changes during the time of the views related to the calculations part on your model, on your view models, we use a inverse binding adapter, or we can say that it is your custom getters, just like a binding adapter as in your custom setters. And you can use your separate classes, as I told you before. I will make a small example for you how you can work with your custom views on that. So if I add 20, so you can say that this is the 40 and you want to work with this is your 64 because of it added the values on that, and this is your 50 plus 20, so this is your 70. So that works according to your calculations. Okay, so these values be your, and if you want to call the function, that's like this is our function, a public void show data. That means if you want to work with this and want to send some values beyond your retrofit calls or whatever be, I just showing to you. So this is your toast, and here you can show that value be as a val. Okay, and here this is our okay, you need a button for that, so you can use that button, match parent wrap content, and this is your id, this is your show val, and it is your text, and text is your click. So this for button you can also make your binding adapter. So for any visits you can work on that and make this app the same whatever you need it on that. That means your app pages, your layouts according to your adapter views. Okay, and this is your button, and I want to call that button by activity main binding dot show val dot set on click listener. This is your new on click listener, and here I'm calling the binding view model dot show data. Okay, so for this we want to run that, what happen? A simple, it gives us that particular value on calculations which we need it. That means if we use a very simple example, uh, Fahrenheit to centigrade, centigrade to Fahrenheit's formula, and any big calculations, any calculations, you can use that on your during the time of data, but according to your app requirement. If not necessary, don't use it. So if I say this is your 20 and I want to click on that, so this is your 40. So this is your formula based calculation. This is your 30 and I want to work with that. This is your 50. That means every time it added the values on during the time of insert the values on your edit text. So that's one example. You can work on that, and I will make more videos, and soon I will make custom classes videos for the inverse binding adapter. You just practice on that and you can learn a lot of things from the adapters. Okay, so thank you so much for the day.